Vladimir Putin responds to Joe Biden's missile approval by changing Moscow's nuclear doctrine. Moscow warns of a nuclear response to attack by a nation supported by a nuclear power. This even as Vladimir Putin is all set to visit India soon. The dates are being finalized, says the Kremlin. Indian economic offenders discussed in the first Prime Minister Modi and Sir Keir Starmer meet, of course followed by talks on the UK-India FTA, that's the Free Trade Agreement. Federal workers in the United States face an era of uncertainty amid Donald Trump's vows to slash the US government. In West Asia, Israeli missiles strike central Beirut, killing at least 5 people and injuring several others. Meanwhile, Hong Kong jails 45 of the democracy activists in the group of HK47 in a landmark trial. Clashes in Georgia's capital, Tbilisi, as police disperse an opposition protest against last month's election results. Tens of thousands of Maoris rally at New Zealand Parliament against a bill to alter the indigenous rights. And amid the Russia-Ukraine war, Sweden prepares its citizens for worst-case war scenario in a new brochure. We'll tell you all about it. Stay tuned. Ukraine has hit Russia with the United States' missiles for the first time on the war's 1,000th day. That's a big development vis-a-vis 1,000 days of the Russia-Ukraine war. And Ukraine has used the United States' supplied ATACMS missiles to strike Russian territory, regarded by Russia as a major escalation on the war's 1,000th day. Now, Russia said that its forces shot down 5 of the 6 missiles fired at a military facility in Bryansk region, while the debris of one hit the facility, causing no casualties or damage as per Russian sources. Now, Ukraine said it had struck a Russian arms depot but did not specify what weapons it had used. Well, the Russians believe it was in fact, the US-supplied ATACMS missiles. Now, as the Russia-Ukraine conflict marks its 1,000th day, it remains Europe's deadliest war since the World War II, leaving deep human and economic scars on both these sides. Now, civilians have suffered greatly, with the United Nations reporting at least 11,743 deaths and over 24,600 injuries as of August 2024. Among the casualties, Ukrainian prosecutors confirmed that 589 are children. And Vladimir Putin has responded. And this is again important and interesting on the 1,000th day, because Putin responds to Biden's missile approval by changing Moscow's nuclear doctrine. Yes, that's right. This decision comes again on the 1,000th day of the Russia and its invasion of Ukraine, after the US government gave Ukraine permission to use its long-range missiles to strike deeper in Russia. Now, what is this change in the nuclear doctrine going to look like? Take a look at this. According to the updated nuclear policy, Russia will consider aggression from a non-nuclear state, especially when backed by a nuclear power state, as a coordinated attack against it, and will retaliate in the same very fashion. The updated policy also allows Russia to expand the use of its atomic weapons in retaliation in case of an external assault. And the newly signed decree also permits the use of nuclear weapons in retaliation against any significant conventional assault on Russia, including your normal drone attacks as well. Now, even as both these developments take place on the 1,000th day, today, Kremlin made another interesting announcement. Vladimir Putin is all set to visit India soon, and the visit to India is confirmed. The exact dates are yet to be finalized. And this will mark Vladimir Putin's first visit to India since Russia launched a war on neighboring Ukraine in 2022. Russian President Vladimir Putin last visited India on the 6th of December 2021 when he attended the 21st India-Russia Annual Summit in New Delhi. Joining us on the broadcast, because there's a lot to talk about here, Professor Devadatta Nair, People's Friendship University of Russia, joining us live from Moscow. A very warm welcome to you, sir. And Dr. Sanjay Pandey, Professor of Russian and Central Asian Studies, School of International Studies at the JNU. A very warm welcome to the both of you. I'm going to quickly first cut across to Professor Nair. Professor Nair, all those aspects that I've put in front of you, we have to look at will the war escalate, what next for either Russia or Ukraine. But on the 1000th day, Ukrainians feel that this decision by Biden came a little bit late. Moscow residents feel that there's a lot of anxiety and it's definitely a questionable act by the current United States' president. But take a look at the latest developments. Prime Minister Modi and Putin are again going to be in the same room, most likely in India. Dates are going to be finalized, and the change in the nuclear doctrine. How are you looking at these developments on the 1000th day?
Good afternoon to you. The Putin visit has been announced, but the dates are not yet fixed, as you said correctly. Second thing, the doctrine has been changed because it has been announced by the President Putin by around 6 months back, and they have just ratified, and now it is on. So it has been not a new thing. It has been already long back. It is due, and the Parliament and the Senate has approved, and now it is on. The doctrine has been approved, signed by the president. Third thing, as far as we understand, Russia is not expecting anything from be it Trump or anyone else from there. So they are counting on themselves only. They understand that no one can change the situation of this Ukrainian-Russian conflict except they themselves. So Russia will take the call, provided it has got safeguard its interest. That is what is the here all the media and the think tank, everybody is considering that they are not expecting any miracles of that part from the shift in power in US. Thirdly, India-Russia relation, it is going to grow another coming 25 years. It is going to grow in a big pace. That is what we can guarantee, and we can expect that thing. That's why President Putin is coming, and Prime Minister Modi and Putin, their chemistry has been very much, the rapport between both the leaders are in a very high pitch. So we can expect more and more Indo-Russian relations in all ways, trade, culture, education, all the fields, even defense fields also. We are expecting our defense minister, Mr. Rajnath Singh, to be next week in Moscow. So there are many things are going to happen this year itself.
All right. Many thanks for your opening comments. Dr. Sanjay Pandey, Professor of Russian and Central Asian Studies, School of International Studies at the JNU, also with us here on the broadcast. And Dr. Sanjay, now that we know that Ukraine has in fact made use of those at least 6 US supplied attacker missiles, how do you think this is going to now change the face of the war? Putin has said it time and again that, mind you, if you use a missile that's been given to you by, well, a nuclear power backed state, we're going to respond in the same vein. What do you think is going to happen next now?
Well, it is clear that the war is entering a new phase. And in the next few months, we are going to see an escalation. Also because both the parties would like to maximize their advantage in the next few months, because they believe and fear that once Trump assumes office, he would try to force an agreement. Of course, he could only force Ukraine, but the Ukrainians are really fearful that they would be asked to accept the ground situation, and whatever territory Russia has occupied, they will have to cede. So that's why they want to maximize their advantage. They want to be in a situation where they can bargain well. And Biden's decision to allow them to use American missiles and weapons against Russia is also aimed at that, so that the Ukrainians can gain some advantage. We already know for the last few months, the Ukrainians have occupied some Russian territory which they are holding, and they believe that this can be a good bargaining chip. Of course, in response to that, the Russians have increased their attack on northeastern region and Sumy region, for example. The latest reports of killings and death of some children comes from that region. So both the parties are trying to maximize their advantage. In the meantime, the new nuclear doctrine that Putin has announced.
I'm going to come to that, Dr. Sanjay, because this message that Russia is trying to send with the alteration of the nuclear doctrine, is it some sort of a deterrent? Because he's used the word nuclear time and, again before as well, usually as a deterrent. Or do you think there's more than what meets the eye with Putin this time?
This is more of saber rattling, which has been going on for the past 2 years. This is not the first time he has used this language. Of course, there are some new elements. The earlier doctrine was in 2020. Even that doctrine talked about use of nuclear weapons against conventional warfare, but only if Russia faces an existential threat. Now, this time, the word existential threat has been replaced by attack on its sovereignty. And Russia has already declared 4 regions of Ukraine, which they largely occupy, not entirely, as their own region. So if Russian control, which includes sovereignty of these 4 regions, is threatened, then, according to new doctrine, Russia can use nuclear weapons. Another thing that is new to this nuclear doctrine is that it allows Russia to use these weapons not just against nuclear weapon states, but any state which in alliance or together with a non-nuclear weapon state is attacking Russia. So that increases the ambit of nuclear threat and nuclear attack. This definitely poses a threat to Ukraine, and this should not be taken lightly. One has to understand that there is too much at stake for Putin. He just can't allow Russia to be shown in poor light or to be shown as weak. His regime's existence, its continuance, is at
stake. But Dr. Sanjay, many would say that he is doing a credible job at it. I mean, take a look at how the entire war has gone through so many, phases and shifts, and it seems like Russia always ends up having the upper hand. But coming back to Prime Minister Modi's visit with the Russian president in Kazan just a couple of days back, and now Dmitry Peskov. You know what? Let me not put it out there and put words in Peskov's mouth. Let the Kremlin spokesperson speak for himself.
So about possible mediation between Mr. Modi between Russia and Ukraine. So we don't have any specific plan, any concrete plan. I mean, from A to Z on the agenda, on the table of negotiations. But we know that Mr. Modi is of course, he's got a very, very special, very pragmatic relationship with our President Putin. And that he's also he maintains contacts with the Ukrainian side, so at least he's able to receive information from first hands. It's very important. It's very important, and thus it gives Prime Minister Modi a possibility to evaluate situation objectively, not under informational or propaganda pressure coming from outside.
Professor Nair, take a look at this. You heard Dmitry Peskov over there. Of course, those visuals will tell you the camaraderie between these two top global leaders is quite rightly out there and up there. But with him saying that there's no A to Z plan or agenda on the table, so to speak, but it's definitely going to happen, does this signify that Vladimir Putin, with the EU sanctions, the latest set, we're going to talk about it for the viewers later on in the show, do you think this is a bid by Putin to make stronger allies outside the Western sphere? I mean, all that he can garner at this point in time. You've got, of course, Xi Jinping, Prime Minister Narendra Modi, and their bonhomie is something that people talk about. Professor Nair, can you hear us? Well, it seems like there's a little bit of a technical snag with Professor Nair over there. But just to tell you that day after Joe Biden's nod to U.S. missile on the Russian soil, the Kremlin has accused U.S. President Joe Biden of escalating the war in Ukraine by permitting Kyiv to use the long-range missile supplied by Washington to strike targets deep inside Russian territory. We've been talking about it ever since. And this accusation came as Ukraine reported that a fresh Russian attack on the Black Sea port city of Odessa, that it killed at least 8 people and wounded several others. The strike does follow a massive weekend assault on Ukraine's already struggling energy infrastructure. Now, Ukraine has long requested permission from the United States to use the Army tactical missile systems, the ATACMS, a powerful long-range weapon to target military installations, particularly airfields inside Russia. Russia says it shot down 5 of those, 6 of which Ukraine has recently fired at Russia. Ukrainian officials say that the weapons are primarily intended to counter Russian aerial bombardments, which have destroyed entire districts near the front lines and severely damaged critical energy facilities across the country.
Moscow has hit back at reports of a US decision to allow Ukraine to fire American missiles deep into Russian territory. The Kremlin on Monday warned any such decision by President Joe Biden's administration would escalate the conflict and would mean Washington was directly involved. When asked about reports by the New York Times and Reuters on the decision, Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov noted they were not based on any official statement. However, Peskov pointed to comments made by Russian President Vladimir Putin in September about such a proposed step. He said using NATO military infrastructure and personnel for the operation would mean the direct involvement of NATO, including the United States and European countries, in the war in Ukraine. Peskov also said the outgoing US administration would be adding fuel to the fire and provoking tensions. Sources quoted in both the New York Times and Reuters reports presented the move as partly in response to the reported arrival of North Korean soldiers in Russia's Kursk region to help repel a Ukrainian incursion. Ukraine's seizure of a piece of the Kursk region marked the first use of US weapons on internationally recognized sovereign Russian soil since the 2022 invasion. Russian officials have cautioned the West against pressing the limits of what a nuclear power might tolerate. Putin has changed Russia's nuclear doctrine to say any conventional attack on Russia aided by a nuclear power would be considered to be a joint attack. In late October, Putin said his defense ministry was working on responses if the United States and its NATO allies helped Ukraine with long-range missile strikes.
Well, Professor Nair, I'm going to change my question at this point in time. After the 1,000 days, what do you think is certainly the biggest challenge for Russia at this point in time? Even as Dr. Sanjay pointed out that we're entering into a new phase of the war. Very quickly, we need to slip into a break as well.
Yes, as Dr. Pandey has correctly said, it is entering into a new stage of war. But Russians have made up their mind. That's what we feel being in Russia. If they have made up mind, they will go till the end of this war or this conflict, whatever it is we call it. They will go till the end. There is no compromise on anything as of now. Russia has not. It is on the table. There is no agenda so far which Russia has put up for this. It is very, very clear that whatever the land which Russia occupies, and according to the new map Russia has taken, or it has been acquired by this thing, that will remain as Russian territory. So there is no point of no buffer zone or no what do you call? There is a buffer zone. There is no point in that context. What Russians are saying that if the other party is ready to come for a compromise, we are ready to consider. Russians have not used that word compromise. You please note that thing, because the Russians have said we are ready to consider.
Right.
If the Ukrainians are ready to compromise, whatever the situation as it is on the ground. So Russians are winning all the way. Russians are winning the war. So why should they go for a compromise?
No, you're absolutely right. But one has to ponder, given the economic and the human toll due to this particular war, one is actually longing for, well, ways of diplomacy and how to really end this war. Many also suggesting that the actual way of ending a war is to stop the cost of the war. When the war becomes unaffordable, it becomes a war that has to just stop. We're going to slip into a quick commercial break here. I'm going to request Professor Nair and Dr. Sanjay to do stay on with us. The US slapped fresh sanctions. US is saying we're going to give more ammo. All that needs to be decoded as well. Don't go anywhere. Right on the other side of this short break.
The next Indian icons, beating everyone on the globe. A new perspective awaits. B6E and XEV9E. Mahindra's electric origin SUVs. Catch them at Unlimit India.
ये किसी की मजबूरी है इसको जलाना बिल्कुल नहीं चाहता।
सुप्रीम कोर्ट का आदेश का पालन करें, हम कानून के दायरे में रहकर काम करें, लेकिन हमारे लिए तो नहीं कोई कर रहा।
There is no wind in the city to blow it all away. The air cannot rise high enough to disperse. So everything gets trapped. And that's the reason why every winter we see pollution levels spiraling out of control.
If I zoom down from the global findings to the national level findings, what we really see is that air pollution continues to be the greatest external threat to human life expectancy.
This and more. Streaming on News9 Plus. News is now content. Subscribe and get free vouchers.
Welcome back to this special broadcast on 1,000 days of the Russia-Ukraine war. And Russia's invasion of Ukraine has disrupted Europe's energy supply as the European Union nations have sought alternatives to Russian gas. But despite the outrage, European demand for cheap Russian gas persists. Over the weekend, Gazprom halted gas deliveries to Austria but quickly secured other buyers. Take a look at this next report from Mar.
Russia's invasion of Ukraine roiled the energy supply network of Europe as EU nations outraged by the war looked to buy gas supplies elsewhere. But enduring European demand for cheap Russian gas was apparent after Russia's state energy firm Gazprom over the weekend halted fuel deliveries meant for Austria and quickly found other buyers. A source familiar with Russian gas supplies in Europe told Reuters gas was still cheaper from Russia than from many other sources, so volumes intended for Austria had quickly been resold. The source declined to name the companies which bought gas previously destined for Austria, but it may even include alternative importers in Austria itself, as data flows on Monday showed Russian gas was still reaching the country. Austria has said it has plentiful gas stocks to cover the shortfall and can import from Germany and Italy when needed. The gas purchases come after Russia's state-run energy firm Gazprom on Saturday halted supplies to Austrian energy giant OMV. OMV had threatened to impound some of Gazprom's gas as compensation for an arbitration it had won over a contractual dispute. At its height, Russia supplied Europe with nearly 35% of its gas needs, but many EU nations switched to supplies from the US, Qatar, and Norway since the outbreak of war. Not all. Austria, Hungary, the Czech Republic, and Slovakia have since still received Russian gas. The relative trickle makes its way west, ironically, through a Soviet-era pipeline via Ukraine. Despite the bloody conflict, Kiev and Moscow have so far hewed to a 5-year agreement to keep gas flowing. But the pipeline deal between Moscow and Kiev expires January 1st. Ukraine has refused to negotiate the new terms of the transit with Moscow during the war. Most other Russian gas routes to Europe are shut down, including Yamal Europe via Belarus and Nord Stream under the Baltic. Another option is for Gazprom to supply some of the gas via another route. There is a Turk Stream pipeline under the Black Sea, which currently supplies Turkey and through Turkey to Bulgaria, Serbia, and Hungary. However, capacity via these routes is limited.
So a new phase of the war, but of course the common people bearing the brunt of this, the fallout of the Ukraine-Russia war. And given the fact the winters are right around the corner, cheap gas from Russia is quite important for all of Europe. Also with me on the broadcast, Professor Devadatta Nair, People's Friendship University of Russia and President, NRI Club of Russia, live with us from Moscow. Very warm welcome to you. Dr. Sanjay Pandey, Professor of Russian and Central Asian Studies, SIS at the JNU, also with us. And Professor Pandey, I'm going to quickly come to you. With the latest set of EU sanctions, of course, Russia has got new buyers, but it's the common people that are bearing the brunt. It's going to be another cold winter in the trenches now, isn't it?
Yes, of course. But we must know that in the last 2 years, Europe has already significantly, if not entirely, reduced its imports from Russia. Although they have put sanctions, but sanctions did not include gas. So gas supplies, at least during the first year after invasion, continued more or less on the same level. Since then, the Europeans have diversified. They are importing from Norway, from Qatar, from other sources, but they are still importing significant amount from Russia. Russia similarly has diversified and selling more and more to China, and other destinations are there. So both are trying to somehow become independent of each other, but that doesn't come cheap. For Europe, gas is the main source of heating during the winters, which are around the corner. So it is going to be a very tough time for Europeans. But if they think that they can somehow arm twist Russia by stopping gas imports, that is not very realistic. Russia has other buyers, and Russia can sustain without Europe. And that's why Putin is likely to continue the war and is not likely to accept anything that means diluting Russia's international prestige or the acquisition on the ground.
And you know what, Dr. Pandey, the thing is that within a span of, let's say, 2 months, Donald Trump is going to be dancing his way back to the White House, who's already hinted at Russia's Ukraine ceding a portion of its territory to Russia, and that's how he's going to quickly call this war off. He's not essentially specified how he's going to do that, but the U.S. ambassador to the United Nations, take a look at this, ladies and gentlemen, as well, Linda Thomas Greenfield, has said on Monday that the United States will announce additional security assistance for Ukraine in the coming days, as the United Nations marked the 1,000 days since Russia's invasion of the country. Here is the address where she lays out United States' plan to surge security assistance to Ukraine, including artillery, air defense, armored vehicles, you name it. Listen in.
The United States will continue to surge security assistance to Ukraine, including artillery, air defense, armored vehicles, and other needed capabilities and munitions. And we will announce additional security assistance for Ukraine in the days to come. Because ultimately, supporting Ukraine in Congress and beyond it cannot be and should not be a partisan issue. Standing up for democracy and human rights is above petty politics and outlasts any one leader or term. And so, in its desperation, the Kremlin has turned to the DPRK, first for arms and now for manpower. At least 10,000 soldiers, sent first to eastern Russia and now to the far western Kursk oblasts bordering Ukraine, have begun engaging in combat operations with Russian forces. It is a move without modern precedent. Not in over 100 years has Russia welcome foreign troops onto its soil. and is one in blatant violation of UN Security Council Resolution 1718, 1874, 2270, resolutions Russia agreed to only a few years ago.
Well, Professor Devadatta Nair, the final say to you at this point in time, even as United Nations now, United States at the United Nations rather saying that we're going to continue with our support for Ukraine. How do you see this entire ball game ending?
Yes, they will keep continuing the support to Ukraine. In a way, we can say that US is supporting not Ukraine, US is supporting their defense industry. They are selling these weaponaries to Ukraine by financing their defense industries. The money remains in US only. So it's a way of they have sold off all the old weaponaries to Ukrainians, and they are using Ukraine as a tool to fight with Russia. They are not coming up front. They are doing it, and they will keep do that. Now it's an open truth. It is not a secret anymore. Everybody understands. Russia itself alone fighting with 29 countries. 29 countries are supplying weaponaries to Ukraine. So they are all supporting Ukraine, not the way it is supporting Ukraine. It is they are fighting against Russia through Ukraine. Ukraine has become a tool. It is not a science or something like that, which everybody understand. Even a layman understand that thing. So Russia understands this thing. Russia has gone into this fight with calculative risk, and of course, it is there bleeding is there in economically and everywhere. Of course, in a conflict is going on, you will have to bear with all these things. So what the common feeling there among the public, among all the layers of society, they have taken it as a challenge. We will go till the end. There is the earlier those days when in 2022 February and all these things, there are something which where people were thinking that should we do it or not, all the kind of stuff. Now the situation has changed. The whole Russia, 100% of Russians are saying that we should go till the end. So there is no way it cannot be solved unless and until Russia, it will be solved only in the terms of Russia, not anybody else, not Europe, not US, not Ukraine. So that is what is Russian president is openly declaring. That's why he is making friendship with India, China, other part of the world. So this is all, it's a part of exercise which Russia wants to do.
You're essentially saying this is all very strategic, and it seems like Russia's here and in it to win it. They're going to go right till the last wire. This entire battle is going to go right down to the wire. So de-escalation, certainly not words in anybody's lexicon at this point in time. On that note, you know what, gentlemen, it has been a riveting conversation. Professor Devadatta Nair, People's Friendship University of Russia and president of the NRI Club of Russia, live with us from Moscow. Many thanks for joining with us, sir. Dr. Sanjay Pandey, Professor of Russian and Central Asian Studies, School of International Studies at JNU, was also with us. Many thanks for joining with us on that particular note as well. But President Joe Biden, he lifted certain restrictions that were blocking Ukraine from the use of US supplied weapons for striking deeper into Russian territory. Well, that ban was lifted. It was authorized, and Biden's decision to authorize the long range strikes could in fact help defend Ukraine's foothold in Russia's Kursk region, which it sees there's potential leverage in the future war talks, if they do in fact happen. But further, these long range strikes are going to be able to allow Ukraine to target Russian military bases like it already has with the use of the 6 US supplied ATACMS missiles. While the decision is a major change in the US policy and could help Ukraine better defend itself, it could also escalate the conflict, which we've seen change in the nuclear doctrine coming from Russia. Here's a report looking at how the implications of Biden's decision and Russia's response to this move will now affect the outcome of the war. But even as we look at all these developments, there's an interesting development that's taking place in Sweden, ladies and gentlemen. Let's shift our focus to what's happening over there. Because amid the Ukraine-Russia war, and mind you, it is 1,000 days of the Russia-Ukraine war, Sweden is in fact preparing its own citizens for a worst-case war scenario in a new brochure that has been distributed across all the Swedish households. Take a look at this. Sweden has started to send out instructions to its citizens on how to cope in a crisis or an outbreak of war in the second public awareness campaign of its kind since the days of the Cold War. The last time In Time of Crisis or War booklet came out in 2018, and the new edition will focus more on war as a consequence of Russia's 2022 invasion of Ukraine. Now, the advisor to the Director General at the Swedish Civil Contingency Agency, Svante Werger, said that the current security situation made it clearer that there had to be more focus on preparing for a war-like scenario. He went on to say, and I quote, "Not that we necessarily think that there will be a war, but we really need to have that preparedness and need to include the population in that preparedness drive." He said after the agency held a press conference about the latest brochure, which is going to be distributed to all the Swedish households over the next few weeks. Now, the new 30-page brochure gives concrete examples on finding bomb shelters, stopping severe bleeding, how to deal with pets, and also how to deal with anxiety, how to talk to children about the war. It also includes information on what to do in case of a nuclear bomb that is being used.
A more severe tonality that is much clearer that we actually have to prepare for a worst case scenario, a war scenario. Not that we necessarily think that there will be war, but we really need to have that preparedness and need to include the population in that preparedness. Russian full-scale invasion of Ukraine in 2022 is kind of the big change. It was a severe security situation also in 2018, but it's actually gotten much worse now. It's changed the security situation in all of Europe, and in Sweden, as a country that's quite close to Russia and which has also now changed its security policy and now is a NATO ally. We think it's really important to also include the population in the preparedness efforts.
Well, that's all the time we have for you in this particular segment, even as we mark 1,000 days of the Russia-Ukraine war. We've spoken about how Putin is now changing that nuclear doctrine, how the United States says it's going to continue to put in that pressure, but what is going to be the end game? There's seriously no de-escalation of this particular conflict on that particular front. We're getting information that in Ukraine, in Kyiv, in central Ukraine, there's going to be a candle march. We'll try and get you those visuals, but that's all for now in this particular segment. On the other side, G20 is happening in Rio de Janeiro. Don't go anywhere.
The next Indian icons, beating everyone on the globe. Prepare for breathtaking performance. B6E and XEV9E. Mahindra's electric origin SUVs. Catch them at Unlimit India.
ये किसान की मजबूरी है इसको जलाना बिल्कुल नहीं चाहता।
सुप्रीम कोर्ट का आदेश का पालन करें, कानून के दायरे में रहेगा काम करें, लेकिन हमारे लिए तो नहीं कोई कर रहा।
There is no wind in the city to blow it all away. The air cannot rise high enough to disperse. So everything gets trapped. And that's the reason why every winter we see pollution levels spiraling out of control.
If I zoom down from the global findings to the national level findings, what we really see is that air pollution continues to be the greatest external threat to human life expectancy.
This and more. Streaming on News9 plus News is now content. Subscribe and get free vouchers.
Welcome back. Prime Minister Narendra Modi held a series of crucial bilateral meetings with world leaders on the sidelines of the G20 summit taking place in Rio de Janeiro in Brazil. The discussions spanned key areas including trade, technology, defense, people-to-people ties, you name it. Here, ladies and gentlemen, are the highlights. Take a look. Prime Minister Modi firstly met with Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni to discuss strengthening bilateral ties. They focused on defense, security, trade and cultural cooperation. Highlighting the potential of their partnership, Prime Minister Modi called the India-Italy relationship vital for global progress. But then again, in his meeting with the French President Emmanuel Macron, the two leaders reviewed their strategic partnership. They discussed progress in defense, space and nuclear energy collaboration under the Horizon 2047 roadmap. And Prime Minister Modi welcomed France's upcoming Artificial Intelligence Action Summit, a move aimed at enhancing ties in digital technologies. Meanwhile, during his first meeting with UK's Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer, Prime Minister Modi emphasized deepening the India-UK comprehensive strategic partnership. They discussed expediting the free trade agreement, an important crucial point, and announced two new Indian consulates in Belfast and Manchester to strengthen ties with the Indian community. Now, the UK-India Free Trade Agreement, the FTA, it aims to boost trade, investment and cooperation across sectors such as technology, while strengthening the United Kingdom's global trade position and deepening the bilateral ties. In 2023-2024, bilateral trade reached a substantial $21.34 billion between the two nations. The UK is focused on reducing tariffs on key exports including electric vehicles, lamb and chocolates, while India seeks greater access to the UK's service sectors, particularly in areas like information technology, legal and financial services, etc. Now, Prime Minister Modi, after Sir Keir Starmer, of course, also met with Indonesian President Prabowo Subianto to reaffirm their comprehensive strategic partnership, and both these leaders discussed cooperation in trade, defense and people-to-people ties while agreeing to commemorate 75 years of diplomatic relations. Prime Minister Modi also held talks with Norwegian Prime Minister Jonas Gahr Store, focusing on enhancing cooperation in mutual interest areas. But that's not all. Of course, had a long list. The Prime Minister and Portuguese Prime Minister Luis Montenegro discussed expanding collaboration in information technology, digital technologies, renewable energy and various startup programs. They also agreed to celebrate 50 years of diplomatic ties in the year 2025. And these bilateral engagements underline India's commitment to fostering strong international partnerships with a key focus on shared goals and mutual development. Shifting our focus to the West Asian sector, Israel's multi-pronged war with Iran-backed proxies. Now, two Israeli missiles earlier struck central Beirut, killing at least 5 people and injuring several others. Smoke was seen rising from the location of the strike in the Zukak al-Balat area, a short distance from the central Beirut district where the Lebanese government is currently headquartered. It was the second consecutive day Israel hit a target within the capital as it presses its campaign against the Iran-backed Hezbollah. Israel has intensified its bombardment of targets in and around the Lebanese capital over the last week, an escalation that coincided with the signs of movement in the US-led diplomacy aimed at reaching a ceasefire. Meanwhile, in a tit-for-tat, several people were wounded in central and northern Israel in rocket attacks from Lebanon. According to a spokesperson for the Israeli ambulance service, 4 people were slightly injured by broken glass in the Sharon area in central Israel. According to sources, a 70-year-old was lightly wounded and taken to hospital after a rocket attack on the city of Carmel in northern Israel took place. IDF said that dozens of projectiles fired from Lebanon were partly intercepted. Meanwhile, U.S. envoy Amos Hochstein landed in Beirut for talks with officials on a truce between armed group Hezbollah and Israel hours after a proposal drafted by Washington won a nod from the Iran-backed group. Now, the visit indicates progress in the U.S.-led diplomacy aimed at ending a conflict which spiraled into an all-out war in late September. But this development, even as Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu has said that the Biden administration was at odds with the Israeli government over plans to invade Gaza with the ground forces in the first place. In a speech to Israel's parliament, Netanyahu said the United States objected and expressed reservation to Israel's plans to invade areas of Gaza aimed at dismantling the Gaza ruling Hamas group.
To accomplish these goals, we entered Gaza. I must tell you, members of the Knesset, that the United States objected, made reservation, also expressed objection. It did not threaten, it did not apply sanctions, not at that time. It expressed reservations and suggested we not enter Gaza. It said it could be dealt with from the air. It sent experts, and we decided to follow our view and go in with ground forces.
Well, what next, you might ask? Lebanon and Hezbollah have agreed to U.S. proposal for a ceasefire with Israel, a top Lebanese official telling Reuters the same thing, describing the effort as the most serious yet to end the fighting.
Lebanon and Hezbollah have agreed to a U.S. proposal for a ceasefire with Israel, a top Lebanese official told Reuters on Monday, as Beirut residents grapple with intensifying Israeli strikes. Ali Hassan Halil described the effort as the most serious yet to end the fighting. Halil is an aide to Nambi Berri, Lebanon's parliament speaker. Berri has been endorsed by Hezbollah, which is backed by Iran, and has been negotiating over a ceasefire. There was no immediate comment from Israel. Diplomacy has been in the spotlight in recent days. World powers have said the ceasefire must be based on UN Security Council Resolution 1701. It ended a 2006 war between Israel and Hezbollah. Under it, Hezbollah would need to move weapons and fighters further back from the Israeli border. Halil says Lebanon presented comments on the U.S. proposal and that all the comments affirmed the, quote, precise adherence to Resolution 1701. He says the success of the initiative now relies on Israel.
Well, shifting our focus to the United States, where the Republican administration is shaping up piece by piece. U.S. President-elect Donald Trump's search for a Treasury Secretary is widening after it stalled over the weekend, and he is looking at other candidates who will be the right heavyweight Treasury Secretary in Trump's cabinet. Well, take a look at this next report for more.
U.S. President-elect Donald Trump's search for a Treasury Secretary is widening, and he is looking at other candidates. That's according to 2 sources on Monday that were briefed on the matter. Billionaire investor John Paulson was originally one lead contender, but exited the race last week, citing complex financial obligations. That left another lead contender, investor Scott Bessent. Although Reuters reported last week that banker Howard Lutnick also emerged as a top contender for the high-profile cabinet post, which oversees the country's financial and economic policy. 2 sources say the new candidates now being considered include Mark Rowan. He's the CEO of Apollo Global Management, one of the world's biggest investors in alternative assets such as corporate credit and private equity. Also in the frame is Kevin Warsh, a former Federal Reserve governor with a long track record of hawkish views on both inflation and deficits. Rowan and Warsh did not immediately respond to requests for comment. It was unclear if any candidates had been ruled out or if other names could be added to the mix. Trump said on Monday that he is nominating former Wisconsin representative turned Fox News host Sean Duffy to be transportation secretary. If confirmed, Duffy will oversee a department with a budget of about $110 billion. He will also manage significant funding that remains under the Biden administration's $1 trillion infrastructure law and EV charging stations. Trump has vowed to begin reversing the Biden administration's stringent vehicle emissions regulations. finalized earlier this year as soon as he takes office. Duffy will also oversee the continuing enhanced oversight of Boeing, after a 737 MAX mid-air blowout in January this year exposed serious safety issues at the company.
Meanwhile, the federal workers are facing an era of uncertainty amid Trump's vow to slash the U.S. government down. The U.S.'s over 2 million strong civilian federal workforce is facing uncertainty amid promises from the incoming president, Donald Trump, and Elon Musk to slash the government employees and cut costs. Federal employee and various unions are lining up lawyers and preparing public campaigns to try to stave off any mass firings. Federal workers are hoping that Republican Congress members will join Democrats in recognizing their importance to the local economies, health and safety, union members and the government, of course. Trump has tasked Elon Musk and former presidential candidate Vivek Ramaswamy to head a panel to streamline the U.S. government, the Department of Government Efficiency, DOGE as people are calling it. Musk and Vivek are expected to revive a plan to convert some federal employees to Schedule F status, which strips them of the job protections. How well the federal workers now reacting? Well, Musk has said he could cut $2 trillion in spending.
The left does two things. The first thing it does is it allows the direct hire of unlimited political appointees. So these are people that aren't necessarily qualified for the job. They just get the job with a wink and a nod. Under Schedule F, they don't have expiration dates. The second thing it does is it forces career employees over to a political status. And by doing that, they take away their protections for their job. So we call them job protections, but they're actually systematic protections to keep everyone honest and transparent and accountable. Schedule F erases those from those employees that would go into that hiring authority. So the employees would be ripe for intimidation and threats, threatening to fire them or demote them or move them to another part of the country where they don't want to live and that kind of thing. The games you can play with a federal employee under Schedule F, under an unprotected status, are unlimited.
Well, shifting our focus here, a major story that was reported from Hong Kong today, where the Hong Kong's High Court sentenced 45 pro-democracy activists to jail terms of up to 10 years in a landmark national security trial that has damaged the city's once feisty democracy movement and drawn international condemnation. The charges were for holding an unofficial vote back in 2020 to choose the candidates for a legislative election. 47 pro-democracy activists were arrested and charged in 2021 under Beijing's national security law. Here's a full report. Take a look.
Hong Kong's High Court on Tuesday sentenced 45 pro-democracy activists to up to 10 years in prison, following a landmark trial that hurt the city's democracy movement and drew global criticism. The charges were for holding an unofficial vote in 2020 to choose candidates for a legislative election. 47 pro-democracy activists were arrested and charged in 2021 under Beijing's national security law. Prosecutors accused the activists of conspiracy to commit subversion. One of them is former legal scholar Benny Tai. He was labeled an organizer of the arrested activist. 14 Democrats were found guilty in May, including Australian Gordon Ng and activist Owen Chow, while 2 were cleared. The other 31 pleaded guilty and have now been sentenced. In the early hours of Tuesday morning, supporters were waiting for the verdict outside the West Kowloon Magistrates Court. Police set up tight security as hundreds lined up with umbrellas in the light rain to get a seat in the main courtroom and overflow areas. The ruling, criticized for harming Hong Kong's reputation as a financial center, comes as the city hosts a business summit. But the Chinese and Hong Kong governments say the national security laws were needed after the 2019 pro-democracy protest and the activists were treated in accordance with local laws. Some Western governments have criticized the activists' treatment, with the U.S. calling it politically motivated. U.S. President-elect Donald Trump's nominee for Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, has strongly criticized the trial. In an open letter, he called the convictions of the Democrats proof of the national security law's attack on Hong Kong's freedoms and independence.
Well, we're almost at the end of the segment, but we've got a couple of stories left. Tens of thousands rallied at New Zealand's parliament against a bill to alter the indigenous rights. We already saw the Haka movement inside the parliament a couple of days back. A 9-day march by Maori and their supporters across New Zealand has culminated in Wellington, and it is being seen as country's largest ever protest to oppose a bill which opponents say seek to dilute Maori rights and threatens to set race relations back by decades. Massive crowds, estimated by police to be above 40,000, gathered at the parliament, where the Treaty Principles Bill was introduced earlier this month by legislators who want to reinterpret a 184-year-old treaty signed between the British and the indigenous Maori. Meanwhile, clashes took place in Georgia's capital as police dispersed an opposition protest against last month's election results, arresting several people as well. Georgia's opposition parties had set up a small protest camp at a road junction near Tbilisi University. It's the latest in a number of demonstrations organized against the October 26 parliamentary election results, which the opposition alleges had widespread ballot rigging and voting irregularities. Official results from the 26th October ballot gave a 54% majority to Georgian Dream, whose opponents say it wants to steer the Caucasus nation away from Europe and back into Russia's orbit. And with that, it's a wrap on this news bulletin. Top developments continue on the other side. Keep watching News 9.
तो क्या अगर आज अकेले निकल पड़े, कल कारवां लेके चलेंगे। तो क्या अगर छोटे शहर में बड़ा सपना देखा, मिलकर मुमकिन करेंगे। श्री राम फाइनेंस हर इंडियन के साथ खड़ा है, क्योंकि भरोसा है हमें।
जब जुड़ेंगे तभी तो उड़ेंगे।
श्री राम फाइनेंस।
Hello, what's up everyone? While writing lifestyle articles, I am Shanli Arora. Hey, what's up everyone? Welcome to our show, Love It or List It. That happens to be my vlog as well. I am Shanli Arora, a lifestyle content writer and a part-time vlogger. While writing for lifestyle articles, my interest on the topic took me to vlogging for the same. So, we are gonna go and explore really fun lifestyle upgrades for you guys. Let's go guys. Mix कर दिया.
लोग वायदा करते थे लेकिन निभाते नहीं थे।
प्रधानमंत्री जी के लिए ये संविधान खाली है।
इस बार सब कुछ अच्छा ही होगा, कमल का फूल खिलेगा।
पहला चरण का जो चुनाव हुए, कम से कम 32 सीटें बीजेपी को मिलने वाला है, पक्का हो चुके हैं। आज हमने इनके सामने, बिरसा मुंडा जी के सामने हाथ जोड़े। मैं आपसे पूछना चाहता हूं, क्या बिरसा मुंडा जी की सोच इसमें नहीं है?
એ તો ફક્ત
ट्रेलर है, पिक्चर अभी बाकी है।
Hello and welcome to the News9 Plus show on the world's first news and current affairs OTT platform, News9 Plus. Here are the top headlines today.
Thick grey haze choked Delhi for the third straight day with pollution levels breaching 488 on the 19th of November. Environment Minister Gopal Rai has alleged the centre didn't act on the Delhi government's repeated requests to allow artificial rain in the national capital. Rai said he will write to Union Environment Minister Bhupender Yadav again about it. The Supreme Court on Tuesday granted anticipatory bail to Malayalam actor Siddique in a rape case. The Apex Court also took note of the fact that the complaint in the case was filed 8 years after the alleged incident took place in 2016. External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar met his Chinese counterpart Wang Yi on the sidelines of the G20 summit in Rio de Janeiro on Monday. Jaishankar said the discussion included the progress in the recent disengagement in Ladakh. Filmmaker Ram Gopal Verma has asked the Andhra Pradesh police for more time to appear before them in relation to an investigation over the alleged morphing of images of Chief Minister N. Chandrababu Naidu, Deputy CM Pawan Kalyan and their family members. A police team recently visited Verma's Jubilee Hills residence in Hyderabad and asked him to join the probe. Pakistan federal authorities have outlawed all public gatherings in the capital region ahead of a planned protest by jailed former Prime Minister Imran Khan's party. The Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf has announced it will launch a protest in Islamabad on the 24th of November to compel the government to release Khan, incarcerated for more than a year. India and Italy have unveiled a 5-year strategic action plan outlining joint initiatives in defense, trade, clean energy and connectivity following extensive talks between Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Italian PM Giorgia Meloni. The two met on the sidelines of the G20 summit in Rio. The Competition Commission of India has imposed a penalty of rupees 213 crore on social media giant Meta in relation to WhatsApp privacy policy. Meta has protested the watchdog's decision and said it plans to appeal. The CCI has also asked WhatsApp to refrain from sharing user data with other Meta-owned apps for advertising purposes for 5 years. Leaders from the Group of 20 major economies on Monday issued a joint statement highlighting the suffering caused by conflicts in Gaza and Ukraine, while calling for cooperation on climate change, poverty reduction, and tax policy. The conflict between Russia and Ukraine reached its 1000th day on the 19th of November. The war is Europe's deadliest since the Second World War, leading to 11,743 deaths and more than 24,600 injuries as per the United Nations.
Maharashtra votes tomorrow. And once again, Congress leader Rahul Gandhi has trained his guns on businessman Gautam Adani. Rahul Gandhi has accused Prime Minister Modi of prioritizing the interests of business tycoon Gautam Adani over the people of Maharashtra. Now earlier, Maharashtra Deputy CM Ajit Pawar had talked about a 2019 meeting where Amit Shah, Gautam Adani, Praful Patel, Devendra Fadnavis and Sharad Pawar were present. This was in the context of government formation in Maharashtra. Now, from state politics to national elections, we've seen one name becoming a central pole issue, Gautam Adani. Will Gautam Adani impact the state elections in Maharashtra? And how much of an issue is the Dharavi slum redevelopment project that Adani has undertaken to develop? Joining me to discuss this are Kiran Thare, editor of The Perfect Voice, Rennie Abraham, senior journalist, Gopal Kumar, economist, and in the studio I have with me my colleague Brajesh Pandey. Brajesh, I want to start by asking you this. Rahul Gandhi borrowing a leaf out of Elon Musk's playbook. He brought a safe there. Elon Musk walked in with a sink. And Rahul Gandhi walks in with a, let that sink in. He walked in with a safe. How much of an issue really is Gautam Adani in these elections? He's been at it, Rahul Gandhi, from 2019, 2024 and now Maharashtra state elections. How much of an issue is it really? Is it found traction on the ground?
Well, I would say, Sandeep, that this is one thing which Rahul Gandhi finds it convenient to put the BJP on defensive. If you remember, Soot Boot Ki Sarkar was one slogan which had BJP on the back foot, irrespective of the BJP claim in public.
8 years back.
8 years back.
Right.
But post that, the Congress has never been able to get an electoral mileage of that.
Right.
What has happened is that in 2024, the lack of electoral mileage broke. Congress reached a 3-figure which nobody had thought. BJP slipped down to 240, which nobody had thought. And from there on, everything has changed. And Gautam Adani is a perfect chai wala moment for Rahul Gandhi. Why I say so is everybody loves a David versus Goliath story. Everybody loves that, that a scheming politician is trying to help a businessman to help him get the votes of the poor and the downtrodden. That is the reason why Dharavi and Gautam Adani makes for a complete contrast. And that is the reason why, one of the biggest, one of the most controversial, rather I would say, interview was, or the line of the interview was, when Ajit Pawar said that Gautam Adani was present in the meeting where Amit Shah, Devendra Fadnavis, you just said, and Sharad Pawar was there. It didn't dented Sharad Pawar, but it did give Congress a lot of counter ammo to the BJP, saying that you are using this guy to topple a democratically elected government. So this is the reason why Adani has become one of the key poll issues of Maharashtra.
Absolutely. Adani has become a key poll issue in Maharashtra. The A factor Ajit Pawar raked up a few days back, and of course Rahul Gandhi has been going all guns blazing. But Kiran Thare, you're there in Maharashtra right now, in Mumbai in fact. How much of an impact has Gautam Adani had on the poll process in Maharashtra? Not talking of just Dharavi, where it is one constituency which is dominated, ironically, by the Congress, Brijesh. But what is the traction that the Adani, the A factor, has had on Maharashtra's elections?
If we consider only about Adani, see the Rahul Gandhi's tirade against Adani has no impact or no traction outside Dharavi. This is unfortunately because what Rahul Gandhi has done, Rahul Gandhi has focused his targeting Adani to Dharavi only. He has not taken any broader issue. See, targeting an industrialist or a multi-billionaire in Mumbai is nothing new. Mumbai is a commercial city. It's a business hub. It's a commercial hub. So Mumbaikars are not very affected with whether you're targeting Adani or Ambani or any other industrialist, unless and until it comes to their doorstep. Here, what Rahul Gandhi has been done, he has focused only on Dharavi, and he's saying that Dharavi has been sold out to Adani. Whereas I think Uddhav Thackeray's points were in a larger perspective. But since Uddhav is not a very good communicator, it didn't reach to the voters in a very effective way. For example, Dharavi's total area is 600 acres. But the Maharashtra government has allotted almost 1200 acres of the prime land to Dharavi's company, in which, of course, Maharashtra government has a partnership for rehabilitating the ineligible people. So 600 acres of land he is getting in Dharavi, plus 1200 of lands he is getting outside Dharavi. So 1800 of acres of land, which is a prime location, which runs into crores of rupees, is getting into Adani's kitty. Now, what Maharashtra government is saying, that they are saying that we are 20% partner. But imagine if the company is generating 100 rupees, Adani is taking 80 rupees, and the government is getting only 20. The total cost of this project is, we cannot imagine even. It's only 25,000 crore. So for a cash-rich state like Maharashtra, spending 25,000 crore on the rehabilitation of Dharavi in 17 years is like nothing. It's like peanuts for Maharashtra government. So why Maharashtra government did not take it by its own, and why did they feel a need to rope a private agency and give it the cost of this land will be 3 lakh crore rupees after 7 years. So investing 25,000 crore and you are earning 3 lakh crore, in which Maharashtra government is getting only 20%, is illogical. This is the larger point, but Rahul Gandhi is not touching this logical point. He is touching which is only affecting to Dharavi. Hardly any movement.
So Kiran, this point that you made, that he's investing 25,000 crore and he's actually getting a land bank of 3 lakh crore. This point has been made by the Shiv Sena. As you said, Uddhav Thackeray has been raising that, but that doesn't seem to have found much traction, Kiran.
But that taxation, because Uddhav Thackeray is not able to communicate in a very effective way. What he's saying that Mumbai has been sold out to Adani, but the politicians need to communicate it in a very simplified manner. For example, they could have said that Mumbai airport is based in the vicinity of Dharavi.
Yes.
So from Dharavi to Mumbai airport, the entire land patch will be under Adani's control.
Right.
Adani is going to decide the TDR. The most important point in this whole controversy is the rate of the TDR. Once Dharavi is redeveloped, 40% of the TDR which will be sold in South Mumbai.
Yes.
South Mumbai means I mean to say Mumbai city district. It's a huge. Right from the area outside Coastal Road to Atal Setu, 40% of the TDR will be compulsorily bought from Dharavi, from Adani. So, and Adani will have the power to decide the rate of the TDR. That is the factor here.
That's
not the BMC, it's not the state government who is going to decide the prices, but Adani is going to decide the prices. That is the main point. But again, he is not able to communicate it straight to the common voters. And again, common voters are saying that anyway, I'm not going to build a house in South Mumbai, which is anyway expensive. It's not my problem.
It's not my problem. It's not in my backyard. Exactly. Yes, Kiran. Well outlined. And in fact, Reni, this point of Adani, the Dharavi redevelopment, has that found any traction among, has it become an election issue in Maharashtra? I mean, Maharashtra goes to the polls a few hours from now, but has that found any kind of traction? Rahul Gandhi doing that safe act, that very public thing of opening that safe and, lampooning Gautam Adani, all the BJP slogans and all of that. Has that found any traction on the ground, or is it just all up in the air?
Sandeep, well, Adani has been the staple diet of Rahul Gandhi's politics, even from 2014. So, in that context, it's not a new phenomena. But having said that, among the voters in the Dharavi belt, the simple reasoning that Varsha Gaikwad, for example, who is the elected MP from there, whose sister is now contesting from Dharavi as an MLA in the same region. So this would suggest that there is a lot of groundswell that she has been able to create. She has become very high profile in the Congress as a result of her, political bastion. And therefore, it is understood that there is an emotive appeal it has drawn. I mean, she has been elected to Lok Sabha a few months back, even when
there seems to be some traction to that, and that's why, as Brijesh was saying, that the Congress seemed to have got itself an election issue finally, possibly the Chaiwala movement, as you said, Brijesh. But Gopal Kumar, the fact that several of the Mahavikas Aghadi has been talking about scrapping this project if they came to power. The Thackeray's have said that. Rahul Gandhi seems to indicate that. What happens to the Dharavi redevelopment project if the opposition comes to power? If the MVA takes over in Mumbai, what happens to this project, and what does it really mean for this Dharavi redevelopment project? We've been hearing about it from the times of Rajiv Gandhi almost 40 years ago.
See, politics and economics have been greatly related over a period of time. But if you see, the correlation has evolved over the time. Now they are seen as oxymorons, right? They don't go along with each other. And that's a new development. If you see the election process in India, any part of the country, earlier the agenda used to be social agenda.
Yes.
Then we moved to economic agenda, and that to economic agenda I'll divide it into two parts: short-term economic agenda and long-term economic agenda.
Yes.
Right now, one of the issues which are coming up in the election, is the short-term economic agenda. That's the basic needs of human beings. That's the social aspect of our living, right? But it's yet to come that long-term aspiration of the people, long-term welfare of the people. So where we are. There's a fundamental difference between politics and economics.
Yes.
Economics is a long term, right? The results of economics comes with the time, right? And politics is a very short term. You have the political gratification and all that.
Right.
Second, very good difference between economics and politics is that, politics is always segment oriented, right? Politics has become marketing now. right? Market segmentation, like you have the political segmentation, which segment of the market, which segment of the country you are targeting at with which issue. So you see that a lot of multiple issues targeted at multiple segments. That is what is the new politics is all about, right? But economics per se is beyond segmentation to a large extent. When we talk about economic welfare, when we talk about economic utility, it does not go to that narrow lanes of the segmentation, right?
So, Mr. Kumar, good point there on politics and economics. And Brijesh, Mumbai is a city where both converge, politics and economics. And this is one case in point where Gautam Adani has become an election issue there. But why is it that Gautam Adani has never issued any statements? He's been very awfully quiet over the last couple of months, and every time his name is raked up, there was a time when Anil Ambani's name would be brought up and he would threaten and file court cases. But Gautam Adani is lying low, playing safe. Is it because he's invested very well across party lines? He doesn't really care who's in power. His economic interests trump politics, if you look at it that way.
I mean, if I may use the word poor guy, I wouldn't be out of context, because the reason is that he knows, that if he joins issue with the political party, which can come to power one day and be detrimental to his business interest, who would want to do that? And Gautam Adani, I think, perhaps got the shock of his life, when Prime Minister in an election rally said that the black money is going from Adani and Ambani to Rahul Gandhi. So everybody had an epiphanic moment at that point of time. So I think, the best course for him is to stay put and not bother, or not rather respond to this particular diatribe which has been launched by Rahul Gandhi for a while now, because he understands how it functions. And any political party which claims that X party is the reason who has seen flourishing and all, we all know how Mumbai flourished. How most of the big businessmen or big business houses flourish. So everyone knows, and every party, the second it comes to power, it had a completely different tune when they were in the opposition. I mean, the BJP is now showing the photographs of Revant Reddy. They are saying that, one of the first businessman which they met after this was Gautam Adani.
Yes.
So, he knows it, and he knows it that the only way to go about it is not to react this at all, because he knows it's election compulsion and nothing more than that.
It's election compulsions, nothing more than that. But Reni, is there any, has Gautam Adani factored in the possibility that the project could be taken away from him and awarded to another business house if the opposition carries out its threat of scrapping this project?
Sandeep, the fact is, I was in fact inquiring on the same aspect with people associated with the Dharavi recast project from the government. And what I understand is there is not a very strong likelihood of the project being dumped in the Arabian Sea, so to speak.
Right.
Fact is, also, politically speaking, somebody like Sharad Pawar, for instance, he has always gone on record to say that I would never want matters to go to court. Because that would be the first likely outcome if the MBA government is sworn into power and goes in for a review and to blockade the Dharavi recast project. So Sharad Pawar is already on record saying that he is always against matters going to courts, because that results in delays, prolonging development, and huge cost escalations. So that is one thing that if the MBA comes to power also, that has to be considered. However, more importantly, what does it mean if MBA comes into power, politically speaking? If it is the Yuti alliance that is elected back, then there is an assuredness of continuity of policy and programs, and therefore stability in the development aspect of Maharashtra going ahead. If it is the MVA, like it happened in 2019, and I had reported about it, there was a review ordered immediately in 2019 when the MVA came into power. The bullet train project was stayed. The 3,500 crore worth of exposure in the form of land parcel in BKC was stayed. And the metro project also came under review. The 160 kilometer Solapur highway project also came under review. So effectively, that is a situation that can arise. And so the Adani group may be compelled, since they are the successful bidder, to approach courts. But as I said, MVA partner, an allowed partner, Sharad Pawar himself, would be very keen to ensure that the projects are not just taken out of the ecosystem.
Absolutely, especially since
in Hindi that is, जब शरद पवार साथ हैं तो फिर डरना क्या?
right. When Sharad Pawar is with you, fear not.
The next Indian icons, beating everyone on the globe. A new perspective awaits. B6E and XEV9E. Mahindra's electric origin SUVs. Catch them